off with something like a Merlin, with a Crewer, even with a Shield.
2 points. You got to go for that Crewer. Come on. They did their best, but clearly just not able to move ahead. Moderator, what did you think?
So they finally came up against an opponent in the Pasty Syndicate that really knocked them down. They went up against Volta. They had a pretty easy run through so far, but they just went up against someone they couldn't handle. Can't be too disappointed with the top 12 finish, though. That's really good for a first time. Top 12 finisher, yeah. So they are going to get automatically invited. They're going to get a nice heap of skins, probably 100 bill or so worth of them. So well done by them so far.
Yeah, excellent work. Excellent work. Not excellent enough as Pasty moves into the top 8, and that's rounding out the top 8 for the day. This being the last elimination bracket match that we'll see.
Now
Here on out, we're
lost it all.
We're shifting formats, and we're moving from single match elimination or single match combat, going through the elimination bracket to the undefeated brackets best of 3 series. Now it's before we move on, we'll look at the damage done in that match. Coming up on your screen right there, Pasty Syndicate clearly dominant, losing no ships, delivering a 275,000 damage across the board, and only taking 72 in response. Valori just not able to apply anything. Those Barghests possibly. What did we say? Rapid heavy?
Yeah, I think they're rapid heavy, which actually did mean that they were short enough range that they wouldn't really be able to kite out the Scorpion Navy issue or the Golem. So it wasn't really as if they had too much of a choice to just evade. They did have to charge it a little bit, but it was still just going to be a brutal slugfest. They came up against a really tough counter for the Golem.
Yeah, and we do just see a line of ships there in the Pasty fleet. Just really capable Scorpion Navy issue. Anchoring the Scimitar Live, those bombers that remain untouched throughout the whole thing. If they leave that DPS in the field, you're going to feel the hit. And really capable. Just hounds.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing teams kind of go one way or the other, either going with the bomber-heavy support wings for lots of damage against battleships and battlecruisers, or with the Tactical Destroyer-heavy wings to be able to snipe out foes. In a lot of ways, it's like we're seeing teams come in with a bunch of peoples and you're going to do really well against these bombers, provided that you call them but the bombers themselves are great for just headshotting battleships.
Now, our next match, the first in this series of 3 of Pandemic Legion versus WeForm Volta, is just about ready to get underway. We're going to go through the bands and then get some quick predictions from the commentators here on the desk. Our next bands coming first, Pandemic Legion, targeting those armor logistic ships, the Guardian and the Oneros. WeForm Volta have gone in an unusual way. They've banned the Widow, which we haven't seen banned.
Maybe they know something we don't.
It's possible. Their other band, the Cerberus, that's very effective from Volta.
Those are 2 bands we haven't seen much of, if at all.
Yeah, but we haven't seen a lot of damage coming from Cerberus. Miracles, the similar hulls. Their other band.
And Volta know what they're doing. This is a real top quality team.
What do you think? Can they beat Pandemic Legion?
I think they can. I think I'm going to predict PL in 3. I think Volta's going to win 1 match. PL's going to win 2. This is a real top quality team.
Volta is probably going to lose this either 3 or 2. Not banning the Fiend, I think at this stage, with Kill still having their Scorpion Navy flag as an option really hurt too. Kill almost certainly brings a Fiend or some other AT ship into this match. You're in the winners series, you're going to at that point. I don't think Volta has anything on their side that can really answer that.
A lot of faith in PL coming from Moderator. We are going to go to the boys in the booth, Chesser and Garayan Wasanar, who are ready to take us away on match 117A of Alliance Tournament 14. A lot of faith in PL.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the action. I'm Chesser, joined by Garayan, and right now we have Pandemic Legion versus Volta. Pandemic Legion fielding a Navy Scorpion, double Sleipnir, Scimitar, double Jackdaw, double Zwiffle, double Manicore. Garayan, break me down on WeForm Volta.
Volta looks like they're going with the desert theme, with double Rattlesnake, double Scorpion, Purifiers, Manticores, and Nemesis. They are going for a headshot.
I'm really concerned about Volta's support wing against what Pandemic Legion has. They only have straight bombers, so they need to be very, very careful on their positioning against these Jackdaws, not to mention the Zwipples that are going to be burning down their throat. If the battleships cannot screen the Zwipples, they are going to just start going to work on Volta's team, not to mention the fact that Volta Volta has no Logi, so these opening seconds of the match are going to be huge. What is Volta going to do with these extra points that they did not invest in Logi?
I'm not sure, man. I mean, we're coming in with Volta running in at 0. They are trying to get as close as they possibly can. They're going for an aggressive attack where they can try to attack any of the critical ships that PL has right off the bat, and we'll see if they're able to pull it off.
And it looks like right now, Pandemic Legion, both of their Zipples doing exactly what they need to do. Casper and Avery getting into the back line. Purifier going down already. Stranded Web. Another Nemesis is coming down now too. The entire battleship core of Volta is completely leaving their bombers in the dust, and they are getting eviscerated by these two Zipples.
Yeah, the support wing on PL side is just going through these like a fire through a wheat field. It's just going to be one after another just dying.
And I still don't see any damage coming in on Pandemic side. It looks like they're trying to kill a Sleipnir, but that's going to be difficult to kill with its own local tank as well as the Scimitar reps coming on it. Volta is just charging into the Pandemic Legion team, but Pandemic Legion very smartly is just kiting them out. The battleship core that Volta has is very slow, and right now one of the Navy Scorpions is dipping low shield.
Yeah, I mean, he's already doing not so hot, and only one bomber left on Volta. And Pandemic Legion, as you said, was just pulling away. They've got ships that have plenty of speed.
But the Scimitar taking has got a web on it, and the Heavy Newts. Heavy Newts finally came into play here. He got caught, which I think he maybe could have piloted a bit better there. But you know what? All of that play now, Navy Scorpion almost dead. But Pandemic Legion is going to be losing their Scimitar in just a moment. The question is
going down too.
Can Volta claw back? If they can kill the Scimitar or the Sleipnir before this Navy Scorpion goes down, can they do it? I'm not sure. Zipples are going to come back into play. The Jackdaws are going to come back into play. They're going to hold down these battleships, and it's going to make it a lot easier for PL to kite around the map.
That is true. I mean, that Sleipnir's his charges must be out. I mean, in addition to whatever else tank he's got, the Scimitar is still webbed and scrammed and neuted now. If they can pull off the Scimitar,
this Sleipnir has to go down. Volta's probably just clawing at their screens. They need to get that Sleipnir down. Okay, now are they going to switch to the Scimitar or not? Scorpion for Sleipnir, I don't think that's a good trade. This Scimitar now taking primary damage, but it may be too little too late. Those two mana cores cannot be understated. They're going to be completely safe, sitting at range, just pummeling the Navy Scorpions and Rattlesnakes that Volta has left. And unless those three battleships have tremendous local tanks, this is going to be very difficult for them to claw it back under the sustained DPS of those two bombers.
Well, that Scimitar is fluctuating wildly here between full shields and not, but it's, as you said, it's just a little bit too late. The damage that they have left with those two Rattlesnakes, a good chunk of their damage being drones, and that's obviously not as hot as it used to be with the difference in limiting it to tier 1 drones only. They went for the jugular, and it's just not going to work. I mean, the Scimitar is going into structure now.
But they're losing. So Scimitar's down at this point. Navy Scorpion is very low in shield. This is going to be dropping shortly under this Mana Core DPS. So the question is can two Rattlesnakes clean up a Sleipnir and a Scorpion while being shot by two Mana Cores? My answer is probably no, unless Volta can pull out something amazing here. I don't see this going their way. Again, the support fleet fight is really what cost them the match. We saw Casper, the last time PL was fighting NC, make big plays, and now joined by Avery in the Zipple, literally at the start of the match in speed mode, right behind the bombers, and those 4 battleships left them completely to die. They maybe got 10, maybe 12 volleys off in total, probably not even a reload in, and when you're just throwing away your entire support wing to 2 T3Ds while trying to burn into the enemy gang, I think that's a very poor trade. Very, very poor trade.
Well, even at the best case scenario, at the rate that they're both dropping right now, it'd just be a snake for a Scorpion. You're still left with this huge points imbalance. I mean, you basically just put yourself in a hole.
Yeah.
And they were not able to claw their way out.
Definitely. Using T1 drones is a problem. But the other thing is when you look at the support wing of Pandemic Legion, double Jackdaws, ships like that, their ability to kill drones is actually pretty high. So not only are these Rattlesnakes using T1 drones, but those drones that they can field, which if they're using the Rattlesnake bonuses, which are 2 very, very pimped up heavy drones, still going
to get snipped.
Yeah, they're definitely still going to get snipped.
I mean, the snakes are getting put down, and Pandemic Legion is definitely stepping on this.
We're actually just getting word. This is Pandemic Legion's flagship Navy Scorpion. So if this actually dies and PL loses this Navy Scorpion.
Oh, that was expensive.
So Pandemic Legion's going to take this game, but you know what? Losing a flagship is painful, especially this early in the tournament. We're not sure. I have to double check on that. I don't see anything in local, but definitely need to double check. Twitch, prove me wrong or prove me right. But if that actually is the flagship Navy Scorp of PL, losing it this early, especially in the best of 3, is going to be very painful. Volta here hanging on with one last rattlesnake, but there's just absolutely no way it's going to be able to claw its way through what Pandemic Legion still has on the field.
Yeah, I mean, losing your flagship like this is just too much.
Okay. Getting confirmed it is not a flagship. I apologize, Twitch. I apologize, everyone. Pandemic Legion, totally cool.
Okay, well, I mean, even so, if that's the case, it would have been a really costly victory, but now it's still just, who cares?
Yeah, it seemed to me that Pandemic Legion completely had a better understanding going into this than Volta did. It's uncharacteristic, at least I would think so, for Volta just to go with a pure bomber backbone with these 4 battleships and no Logi, along with the fact that they don't have any links. Like, this is a setup I would expect to see from a team that doesn't have the potential that I think that Volta actually has, so I'm a little bit disappointed when I see. Match is over. Gorion, take us back.
All right, well, you know, that's it. Hearing me as Chester and Gorion, we'll hand it back to the announcer's desk.
Сереж, я сетки с Т2 на Т1 поняла, так что у меня там сетки Т1.
Ну, главное, что они там были.
Ну да.
Ну, заодно получишь навыки на эти Т2 сетки.
Ну да, они уже практически были готовы, там буквально минуты, часы какие-то. Угу.
Так, теперь понятно, что подтягивать. Ну вот. Я обалдею, я уже половину маршрута яйцом прошел.
Pandemic dropping WeForm Volta's biscuit in their own tee, taking them down for the first match of 3 in this series. A perfect illustration, more or less, of what we were talking about right before, where T3Ds can go in and sweep up some bombers, trying to get that headshot. What do you think, moderator?
So I don't think Volta was actually trying to win the match there. I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to use a bit of a cheese with all the bombers and the heaviest long-range battleships that are basically in the game that are shield tanked. They wanted to all in what they thought would be a PL flagship and then kill it and then try to win the next 2. They realized that they probably can't win the series if that flagship is still alive. And I think that's actually pretty smart of PL to maybe not bring it on the first setup, possibly expecting that, trying to feel it out. What's your take on that, Fozzie?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually something we've seen PL do in some previous tournaments, where they get a kill on a flagship, get a kill on a crucial alliance tournament ship that then helps them win series later. I think it was a very smart play. It made a bit of sense then seeing why they went after the Sleipnir rather than the Scorpion in the beginning. I think if that had been the flagship, they would have went all in on the Scorpion to try to kill it. But then because they wasn't the flagship, they decided to go for the Sleipnir instead and just couldn't kill it fast enough. The Tech 3 destroyers just ripped through the bombers. Like I said, really good hard counter. It's just such a flexible ship. You can use it for tackle, you can use it for clearing small ships.
Extremely effective in that match. Extremely effective in the tournament overall, T3Ds. And apparently garnering a little bit of attention from Dev for future releases.
Yeah, they're strong ships. High skill cap in the tournament. We're going to be having some balance changes to them coming up, but really great in this kind of format.
What do you think for next year in the Alliance tournament? Maybe a point increase for
I actually like having them be relatively cheap. They're ships that require a lot of skill to get the most out of them, and it's always good to encourage those kind of ships rather than ships that are a bit easier to fly.
Now, of course, we did promise the viewers yesterday a little bit of chat from you about the rules changes this year that have come to the AT and your process for doing that year on end. So why don't you walk us through some of the differences in the rule set that PL and WeForm Volta are working with versus what was occurring last year?
Yeah, so the biggest change by far is the reduction of the number of pilots on the team from 12 to 10. We did that primarily to allow smaller teams to be able to easily compete and do more in-house practices, but also because it shakes up the meta quite a bit. It provides a very different type of format. You have fewer pilots available, so you often will have a smaller support wing. We also shifted around the points to kind of incentivize some more larger ships, which is why we've been seeing so many battle cruisers, so many battleships, and reduce the points of Blood Raider ships as well, which is why I've been seeing so many of them here. It fit a theme, and Blood Raider ships are just fun to watch in a tournament, I think.
Moderator, how are you liking these rules changes?
I think the rule changes have largely been positive. If you hadn't changed the rules, I think you would have seen a lot of a static meta from the last year coming into play. But besides the Hicks changing, you had that change, you had logistics fall-offs change. There's been a lot of really good, interesting changes, not just to the rules, but to the meta as a whole to shake it up. So I think it's been overall a positive decision.
And we can see the impact of those changes and the impact that they have directly on WeForm Volta in this match summary coming up on your screen now, showing Pandemic Legion delivering 257 points of damage across, only taking 152 from WeForm Volta. That not so much reflecting pricing on the Blood Raider ships, but definitely showing Pandemic Legion's abilities in the arena to just control a match with those Tech 3 destroyers.
Yeah, I mean, this Volta team is probably the highest DPS team we have seen in this tournament so far. Really all in. This is a team designed to be able to kill enemy ships really fast. Unfortunately, they just lost the bombers so quickly. It's interesting that with this team, they banned out the Widow. I would have expected maybe banning something like the Sweeple, although maybe they thought that would give away their hand too much.
Maybe they were just worried about the Scorp Navy issue and the Rattlesnake not getting the spotlight they deserved as hulls that share a similar layout.
If they're relying really heavily on the drones from the Rattlesnake as well, Widows and Jams in general are really effective against the small number of high-powered drones on Garista's ships. So that's something they could be worried about, but I have to imagine that because we only allow Tech 1 drones, that the drone damage from the Rattlesnakes is a relatively small part of the overall damage of that team. So I doubt that's what they were really worried about.
Now here's the question, Moderator. In the next match, does PL come with a serious Alliance Tournament ship heavy, like genuine comp that they've worked up and we haven't seen before, or do they stick with something a little bit more steady and just try and ride out the win?
Traditionally, what I would have done, as this is the team captain going this far, I would just try to end it, close it out, give my time for my pilots and myself to recharge and get ready for the next series that you might have. Just get prepped for tomorrow, just end it over. People can get a bit fatigued having to play a best of 3. So just end it, don't risk it possibly going to a third and just close it out.
Yeah.
All right.
I think in this situation, though, they've got the extra week in between for any other matches, so they probably, they will get some time to recharge. It is very harrowing, though, having to do 3 matches head-to-head, it's really rough.
Well, fortunately, the pilots will have a break here as we move to the next fight, the first in a best of 3 between the Afterlife and Tuskers. Now, that match, again, the second series of 3 to occur in the still undefeated bracket. All of these teams can take a loss and move down to face the 4 teams that we've determined from our earlier matches today: Exodus, Pasty, Northern Coalition, and Phoebe Freeport Republic.
Yeah.
So not quite as much pressure, but still a lot of pressure to stay where they have the safety net of that loss.
Yeah, coming in through the winners bracket finals makes it so much easier. Partly because it means you have to run fewer matches total next weekend, but also because the team that enters into the best of 5 finals from the winners bracket gets 1 win at the start. They basically get a free win at the beginning of that series.
And of course, any team winning a series match, like these 2 that we're seeing later on today, receiving an extra reward of 10 additional tournament skins.
Yeah, more tournament skins means more funding for your team for next year.
Which is always important and fantastic. Also, it makes your ships look pretty.
Yes,
and
they are really good looking.
While we haven't done quite as focal a job as the Event T crew did in the first weekend, we have seen some skins making an appearance on the field here at the Alliance Tournament. It's always nice to give the players a little bit something to customize, work with their own setups, ships that still deliver a punch, but also a little bit of panache. I mean, credit to that, and credit to the camera people who are managing to focus in on those ships that are using skins. Good job. We're going to move on to the bans for the first Afterlife Tuskers fight. This Originally set to kick off at 18:20. We're a little bit behind, but not so far. The bans, however, are right on schedule. Afterlife has chosen to ban the Kitsune and the Hyena. And the Tuskers are going after that Armor Logi, the Guardian Oneros combo. I'm pretty safe saying that the Oneros is the most banned ship in this AT.
It's
I
a
can't
very common
imagine that
ban,
there's anything that's been getting more hate than that adaptable Galente shield or armor Logi.
We've seen how hard it can be to kill with an afterburner. We've seen how effective it can be at keeping its allies alive. It's really a great ship in this format. And yeah, when you ban both the Oneros and the Guardian, you're really limiting the kind of choices your opponent has.
It's a big shift from 2 years ago in the Alliance tournament, where you'd much more likely see one of those. I was going to say one of those tactical cruiser sets. Just because Tinker really not making any appearance in this AT.
No, this year we've made one other big change we made to the rules is we have disallowed energy transfers, which essentially has eliminated the Tinker as a viable option. Yeah. We may bring it back in a future tournament, but it's always good to shake things up, have a little bit of time without it, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Well, speaking of time, we're just about ready to go to the match with the boys in the booth. Taking those bans into effect as fast as you can. Moderator, who do you pick in the first match of the series of 3? Afterlife or the Tuskers?
Tuskers.
Tuskers it is. Fozzie?
I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with Afterlife.
I love the Discord. I love it that they disagree, and I'm not going to break it up by causing some sort of asymmetrical imbalance and picking a side. Instead, we will go to Garayan Wassenaar and Chesser in the booth for this match 118A of Alliance Tournament 14.
Welcome back to the first round of Afterlife and Tuskers Company. We've got them sitting here right at the setup here, and we're ready to figure out what we've got here, looking at each other down the barrel of a gun. What do you got on your side?
Tuskers is bringing a double Navy Scorpion, Etana AT ship on the field, ladies and gentlemen. Navy Drake, Serb, double Jackdaw, Flycatcher, double Manticore. Afterlife has what?
2 Paladins, Baelgorn, Augur, Magnus, Pontifex, Blackbird, Manticore.
So, interestingly enough, both teams warping in at range, except for Afterlife's Magnus, which is warped in at 0. I'm not sure if that's a mistake or if they plan to have it there, but it's an interesting place to have a Magus straight at 0. Match is beginning now, and it is beelining straight away. I wonder if it'll be back. Tuskers is primarying it. Oh, and Logi's catching it right away. Great call. Okay, so I think they might be able to save it unless some extreme alpha comes back through now. And, Manticore down already on Tuskers' side.
Yeah, it looks like there was an issue earlier with the Magnus coming in. That's probably why he ended up at the center of the arena. But, you know, luckily that didn't cost him too much too quickly. And it looks like that Afterlife has got the initial advantage with that Manticore going down.
So I don't think we've seen Paladins yet in this Alliance tournament. The Paladins are burning into the Tuskers team, which also is sending in its Scorpion Navies. The Paladins are very dangerous with Scorch. Completely cut off that Manticore, even through reps, didn't even matter. So the small ships on Tuskers' side need to be careful with these Paladins, because if they start locking on and getting good damage, it's going to be difficult to keep them up even through reps. Scorpion Navy is just charging right into the Afterlife squad. I'm interested to see what Tuskers has planned for these double Scorpion Navies, just kind of branching away from their fleet.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far we're just kind of doing that cat and mouse initial positioning, but other than that Manticore that's died earlier, I mean, we got some shield damage coming in, the Baelgorn being piloted by Faffy Waffy, a person I've crossed swords with more than once, but right now, I mean, we're just still trying to positioning. I mean, the Navy Scorpion is going into half shields, which could be risky here, and that's probably why those Paladins are charging right in to apply as much damage as they can.
So it looks like both of the Scorpion Navy issues of Latronicus and also of Suleiman have been screened very nicely by the Baelgorn. Cannot understate the power that that's going to bring as its ability for control. And you just have these 4 battleships locked in the center of the match, and both teams just looking for any type of weakness. Afterlife did get that initial first blood in the Manticore, but Tuskers are trying to claw back hard. I almost wonder if Suleiman might have overextended himself a little bit too much here, because under the new pressure of the Baelgorn, he may be losing his invulns, and the ability to keep him up under the combined DPS of Afterlife is proving to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we're locked horns at this point. The 2 Paladins are right on top of that Navy Scorpion. They're trying to push through the reps that it's getting from the Etana coming from Skylar Hawk. I mean, we'll see if it can keep up.
So Etana right now, very, very worryingly, is webbed. It's neuted, and it's currently taking a little bit of damage. It seems that the Baelgorn has just grabbing it on the edge of its newt range, but you know what? Latronicus' Scorpion Navy is moving in right away to try to screen it off. Either way, that Balgorn has an extremely long range. With Nosses and newts, the Atana may find it a little bit difficult to keep the reps flowing, but right now everything looks stabilized so far, but that Atana needs to be careful because it's starting to take some serious damage from this Paladin team.
Yeah, I mean, it's dropping into deep shields right now, and I can see
needs to hold on.
drones moving across the field towards looks like
half armor. These Paladins are putting out a significant amount of damage. It needs to be careful. Low armor, low structure. And if Tusk is losing this, Atana down. Wow, Afterlife proving to have a very interesting concept with this double Paladin team just crushing this Atana. I don't know what Tusk is going to do right now. They're in a bad place.
Yes, they are in a very, very exposed position right now. They have no Logi from the tournament ship that just exploded in a very expensive ball of fire, and that Scorpion, as you can see, it's dropping like a stone right now because nothing is holding back double Paladin onslaught.
Oddly enough, the Augurer on the Afterlife side, it stayed alive for a really, really long period of time. However, they finally have a Jackdaw on it, which has it scrammed. Now it's finally taking damage from these missiles. Augurer is down, but that was a T1 Logi living that long. The question is, with links up still provided by the Pontifex, and the fact that both of these Paladins are more than likely self-rep, is Tusk going to be able to do it? Suleiman down, the Navy Scorpion, Jackdaw down. This is going to be just a bloodbath back and forth, and right now I'm thinking Afterlife is going to come out on top.
The only thing that was keeping Tuskers up was that Tana, and it looks like since they pulled the legs out of it, it's just been one after another falling down. That Augur totally kept himself alive long enough to let Afterlife push the winning needle to their column very solidly.
And this is the problem when you are running missile-based setups. If you cannot get any webs, any scrams, or newts on an enemy Logi ship that has an afterburner, it's very difficult to apply missile DPS, and you're seeing that right here. The Balgorn piloting of Faffy Waffy cannot be understated, making some clutch plays, grabbing that Atana that drifted just a little bit too close into range, and you know, those Paladins, their ability to apply projected DPS onto targets, especially EM, which isn't exactly the type of damage the Atana likes to see, is just going to be devastating.
Yeah, I mean, EM damage coming from those two types of ships against a shield setup, that's about as good an opportunity as you can get coming in from the tournament. You land, you see, excellent, everything shields, and that's exactly the damage that I'm doing that they don't want to see.
It was absolutely really good play by these Paladin pilots. They've been moving around the map appropriately. They've been slowing down their ships, applying the damage where it's needed, and you know what? This has to be just heart-wrenching for Tuskers. Not only are they going to be losing the match, but they're also dropping an AT ship for it. This best of three is going to be explosive between these two teams. If this is just the first match in general, I'm very excited to see what Tuskers is going to do. They're a very good team. They're going to come back with something. And you know what? Afterlife, kind of being a dark horse, being underrated. They took out Exodus. They actually stomped Exodus, and now they're coming in here, and without even using an AT ship, using a T1 Logi, making Tuskers look foolish. I am excited to see if Afterlife has what it takes to go all the way.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a very strong first of three here, where Afterlife has come in, took the boar by the tusks, and rolled it over.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's something to be said when you're looking at these really good teams that have these unique compositions that they don't show earlier in the tournament, and then suddenly come out at the end of week 2, and then certainly into week 3, with these compositions, these edges on the meta, these new types of gameplay that originally no one had thought of, and just to see how far it can really go. The double Paladin setup has been used before in previous ATs, but this is the first time we've seen it here in AT14.
Absolutely.
Really nice to see it played very, very well. I mean, this is a nice setup. I like the way it looks. It's got everything you want. A little bit of Logi, and we're seeing these Tech 1 armor Logis with these heavy armor ships. It's got the Pontifex providing links and just that double Paladin backbone with the Balgorn, of course, which just makes applying that damage from the Mega Pulse lasers that much easier.
Yeah, I mean, the Navy Drake would mean the last thing on the field right now with 3 minutes left. Oh, Edge of Glory. So that leaves Afterlife with 100 points to the Tuskers 14, and that's all she wrote. Back to the commentator, or to the analyst desks. Thanks for watching.
CCP Rise, who do you like in this?
I mean, I have to choose Exodus every time.
Kick Cap is out of bounds.
Swatch is out of bounds.
Oh,
Swatch is out of bounds.
Cog is out.
too.
Burley's out.
I have EC300s on me, and I'm jammed.
If we just put
Oh
our
yeah,
own...
those are friendly. Good fight.
I'm down, red belly down.
What the fuck? I shot early.
Guys.
And Tuskers catching their first loss in this Alliance Tournament 14 to the Afterlife, who come at them gunning and managed to edge ahead. Moderator, you gave the call for Tusk. What happened?
I'm not sure what happened.
He's at a loss for words. We're moving on to Fozzie. No, go, Moderator. Go.
No, really though, I think what they needed to do is, instead of trying to kill anything else, they needed to kill the Augurer. Eventually they would have sent rep drones on them. You have a Cerberus, you have Jackdaws, you have Navy Scorpions that can shoot out. It's only a Tech 1 logistics. It will break eventually. Then you can kill the Maguses, you can kill the Lynx, you can kill the Bombers on support. Obviously Tuskers knows more about the comp than I do, but I'm confused.
Did they not take it seriously? Tuskers banned out the Oneros and the Guardian. Why not go after that all year? Did they know? Were they trying to push them into shields because they're weak against that armor comp?
They probably felt that they needed to get a web on it to be able to apply real damage to it. It's going to be afterburning. I assume those were crews, Navy Scorps. It's you'd be eating away at it a bit, but with a lot of rep drones, unless you can get a ship with a smart bomb on top of it, get a ship with a web on top of it, you might not be able to kill it. I think it was a tough choice. I do think going after the Augurer would have been something worth at least trying. But again, who would have expected that Paladins would be the surprise setup that Afterlife is holding back for the...
that pilot Pandy, really coming forth with that Paladin, and that Marauder, not a ship that you see.
No, we haven't seen almost any of them. We've seen some Golems, haven't seen any Paladins as far as I know this tournament so far, or at least not very many. Yep. We don't allow the Bastion module in the tournament. It's a little bit too strong. It has been used in the past. We have allowed it in the past. In those tournaments, Marauders, including the Paladin, were dominant core ships for many teams.
Most of the people viewing at home will know that the Bastion module is kind of like a siege module for Marauders. It stops them from moving, but enables them to project quite a lot of damage and really reach out to most. I think it gives them a range bonus too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives them a range bonus, gives them a tanking bonus, locks them in place, makes them immune to electronic warfare. A really powerful module. Very good for this kind of format too, because it gives you the range you need for the whole arena. It gives you immunity to E-War, which is such a big part of the Alliance tournament. So we don't allow it here.
Nice for taking down citadels and other in-space structures. Not part of tournament gameplay.
Not right now. It has been in the past though. In this case though, they were using the Paladins for the fact that they had great damage projection, the ability with Scorch and Mega Pulse lasers to be able to snipe away a bomber, for instance, right at the beginning of the match, and the ability to have a lot of utility high slots, a lot of extra high slots available for newts and smart bombs, both really core key modules for Alliance tournament play.
The Pulse being the shorter range lasers and Scorch being the longer range ammo for it. Yeah. It's a nice way to min-max your damage in those ships. Moderator, what do you think about the use of the Marauders in the Alliance tournament this year?
Well, so far I can only go off this one match, but what Tuskers brought was they brought essentially a very kind of light missile kiting comp with the Cerberuses, and they had the Jackdaws. And Scorch, not only does it do well at shooting targets at that range, it does EM and thermic damage, which Caldari ships are traditionally very poor against receiving. So they brought a setup that was very good against what Tuskers had, and they won with it, so props to them.
So now there's going to be a really tough question. Right now, as we speak, Afterlife and Tuskers are doing the banning for their next match. They don't have a bunch of time to think about it. They don't have a bunch of time to prepare. They have to get right into preparing for the next match, which is the match after our next one for the viewers. And they have to decide, as the Tuskers, whether they ban the Paladin, whether they try to come up with a counter to the Paladin, and they have minutes to do it, not hours, minutes.
It's a high stress situation. It may be just as stressful as actually engaging in combat, and it's why we give these teams a little bit of time. Why we break up these series into match to give them just a little bit of breathing room, but just a little bit.
Yeah, it's very stressful. I know you've captained teams for Moderator. I've been involved with some of these teams before, and the deciding what to bring, deciding what to ban, it is very stressful. And you think you're right. It is about as stressful as actually flying in a tournament match. Really, really high stakes.
Of course, the big question: if it were you, what do you do?
I would take a look at the setups that my team has practiced. If I don't have something that is confident being able to do well against the Paladins, I'd ban them. With this kind of time, you don't have time to come up with something new or to modify a setup. Just look at what your toolbox. If you don't have something ready to go, throw a ban at the Paladin.
Mod?
Go for broke, bring something like Fiend, and then your Navy Scorpions around that, and try to do things a bit differently, or bring your flagship. I mean, you're gonna need to try to bring it back and go 1-1.
I can't believe I didn't hype it already, but Anatana was lost in that match.
Yeah, I know.
And
we almost just overlook it.
How can you forget that Anatana down? I think we're down into either the high 30s or low 40s on the actual population.
There's been quite a few of them exploded. Second one done of this tournament. Actually.
Yeah. It's not quite as much money lost as last year overall, but quite a lot of cash has been sunk into these AT tournament ships.
And there's still another weekend to go.
Yeah, and we definitely could see Tuskers, could see Pandemic Legion bringing something. Pandemic Legion, of course, in our next match going up, hopefully for them, for one more win.
I wouldn't be surprised from almost any of these teams. We know Volta has AT ships. We've seen Afterlife bring AT ships last year. We know Tuskers and PL both brought them this year. These guys have expensive setups. They know how to use them. These are some of the best teams in the game.
Speaking of expensive setups, let's see what the post-match synopsis says. Now, again, our evaluation may not entirely be correct. It says 95 billion, but I think that's edging up closer to 200 or
like 150 maybe. Yeah, it's going to depend on what kind of deal you can get, but yeah, very expensive ship because these are limited. These only 50 Atanas have ever existed in the game. We're down below that now because they've been exploded, and no more will be added. This is a rare collector's ship.
I love it that you get a deal on it. I love the idea of CCP Fozzie somewhere on a street corner. Hey, you want Antana? I can get you a great deal. It's wonderful. It's coming across to you.
Yeah,
100 billion.
You know a friend with it? I've heard of people renting out tournament ships before.
What?
Yes, where people that somebody has collected a number of them and is willing to give them to another team to use in a tournament match, and if they lose it, they have to pay the full price.
What is the deposit on a Katana rental? I want to think about it.
No, in all seriousness, people will set up a deposit with like Cribber or someone that's a trusted third party, and they'll say, okay, let me rent this for a certain amount of time, but they have to then have the money then transferred through Cribber or someone else if they lose it. So
they only
that's
have
a
to
real
pay
thing.
for it then if they lose it.
Cribba Escrow, known to be very secure. Cribba also, I think, currently a moderator on the Eve Reddit channel. So hey, Cribba, how's it going? Hope all is well.
Long-time, most trusted person in Eve,
just
a quality guy.
After yourself, Fozzie. Everyone agrees with all of your decisions and trusts you immensely. Hey. We are going to take a look at the next match coming up, a return to the WeForm Volta Pandemic Legion series of 3. Those bans are in for the second match, and they're very, very similar to the bans that we saw for the first match. And it's something to think about. Pandemic Legion, again targeting Guardian Oneros, again going after armor Lagis, getting them off of the field, maybe forcing Volta, if they want to take armor, to go into that Tech 1 or Frigate Lagi setup that has been
Frigate Lagi can be very good.
Now, WeForm Volta, you'll remember in the first match they banned the Widow. They've done it again. They've gone after the Widow, but instead of targeting the Cerberus with their other ban, they've gone after the Sleipnir.
All right, yeah, we've seen PL bring Sleipnirs in the last couple of matches. It's a really strong ship all around in the tournament. Really strong shield setup ship. They've been relying on it heavily in the shield setups, and PL has banned out the armor Logi, so it'll be interesting to see what they bring. You
do see those Sleipnirs coming in with that strong artillery set, just popping things.
Yep. Although these have been autocannon ones that PL has brought in the last couple of matches with the Navy Scorps. Yeah.
True. Moderator, what do you think about those bans? Sleipnir, Widow, Guardian Oneros.
PL's just running a default series of bans. They're generally good bans, but also traditionally, it means that you're not showing any more beyond, we're just going to ban this all the time, so it doesn't give you anything. You don't know what to think. You have nothing really to react if it's always just the same thing. I know PL in the past has always just banned something like Celestis and another damp ship, one of the frigates, Maulus and Maulus carry, something like that. But if you're Volta, I like getting rid of the Sleipnir, getting rid of artillery or that kind of damage and links, and having to go to an inferior Caldari command ship.
I think they're hoping that PL's going to have to move something new, maybe something that's not going to work as well. PL's got a couple of options. They could go with the same Navy Scorp team and just like swap in Claymores. We've seen teams do that before when Sleipnirs get banned. Probably not as good of a match because that'll make them a bit weak against frigates and Tech 3 destroyers. Or they could just go with another setup entirely. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
PL notoriously agile when it comes to switching rapidly from one comp to another. They've got a lot of ships in their stable and a lot of tournament money from years previous to put behind fitting those ships. And the pilots tend to have the skill points to fly them.
Yeah, and all of these teams have all practiced a ton of setups. These guys have been practicing on Thunderdome for weeks and months, and they have a big stable of setups to choose from. So I'd say all of the 4 teams that are still in the winners bracket here, they still haven't shown their best setups, and they're saving that for next weekend.
Well, we'll see whether or not the gamble pays off if they don't bring their best setup. Pandemic Legion going up against WeForm Volta for the second match in their series of 3. I have not received confirmation that the teams are on the field yet. And I have received confirmation that the teams are taking the field. So we will go to Chesser and Gorion in the booth to begin this match 117B of Alliance Tournament 14.
Hey everyone, welcome back. And here we have match number 2 between Pandemic Legion and WeForm Volta. And here are the matchups that we're looking at today.
So Pandemic Legion has brought Navy Scorpion, double Claymores instead of double Sleipnir. Very interesting. Scimitar, double Jackdaw, double Zippel, Manicore. What have Volta brought?
Volta has brought the double Fleet Foon, which is something we've seen a lot today. Also, another Foon and a Prophecy, obviously, for their links, and then a smattering of, looks like web-based support ships.
You know, I was just looking over the ships really quickly, now that we just have just a little bit of time here, and it looks like these are going to be Cruise Foons and a Cruise Navy Scorpion. I'm interested to see how these Claymores work, just because generally you do not see them, especially as like an attack role ship in the AT. Definitely the first time we've seen them here. Are their hams going to be enough?
Yeah, we're seeing the looks like Volta run towards the PL lines with their Fleet Foons, aggressively coming straight for their setup here. One of the Hyenas for Volta is taking a lot of damage.
Yeah,
because it's got
Volta needs to be careful with these Jackdaws very close to it. TikTok immediately trying to grab a little bit of range. It seems to have stabilized, but during that time, Zippel lost on Pandemic Legion's side.
Yeah, those Hyenas are going straight for keeping that Svipol fleet off of the fleet. They're trying to keep them stable and away so that their support can kill them, because those will run roughshod again, like we've seen in a lot of other matches earlier. Well,
but this Typhoon is going down so hard. Wow, reps landing so late.
You
know what? Right now, Volta needs to be very careful if they're losing a battleship already.
Yeah, I mean,
they only have a Tech 1 Logi, and it looks like he's just stabilized. Oh my God, low armor. Wow. That is just a shred of armor. From what I'm seeing right now, 5% structure. Wow, Theroth has to be counting his lucky stars if Volta lived through that.
What was the quote that we were told earlier? A bee's dick?
Yeah, possibly from the Aussie team. But I'd say Pandemic Legion's team is just absolutely covered in webs. The double Hyenas that Volta brought are just doing absolute work here. One of them down, control feet down. Again, Pandemic Legion switching their DPS back to the Foon and then switching back to Hyena, really stressing the Augurer. Starfleet Commander doing everything he can to try and keep his team up with his reps spread out, but this Typhoon is just, down too, and if they lose the Hyena...
down, and the Hyena's also dipping deep into armor.
Yeah, wow, Hyena down too, so that's 3 ships down quickly. The Augurer just stretched too thin. Pandemic Legion on point, back and forth calling DPS calls, and it cannot be understated, but the double Jackdaws do a lot of damage to these light ships. Getting the Hyenas off first was a great call, not going for the bombers. The Hyenas are going to allow the damage from these cruise Foons and the bombers just to be amplified against the Claymores, which have an extremely great tank. And right now, Volta, unable to break Pandemic Legion Scimitar, they might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's just looking like more bad news for Volta. The Augur's been webbed, snossed, and painted and scrammed. So he's in serious trouble, because those Claymores and Scorpions, if they get a hold of him, are probably going to knock him down pretty quick. Speaking of things that are having a bad time, that that Scimitar and Peel's side is also dipping very, very low into armor.
It's definitely running the last few of its XLASB charges, but at this point, it may have stayed alive long enough to live. It's going down just now, but you know, these two Claymores on the Pandemic Legion side are essentially just missile-based Sleipnirs for all intents and purposes. They have hams, so they're not going to be able to get any damage at all unless the Augurer is scrammed and webbed. Currently it is now down.
Again, another Purifier down is too, so that's another huge chunk of DPS.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The question is can these two Fleet Foons do enough damage against Claymores and Scorpions without the Hyenas? The issue with taking cruise missiles, if you do not have your targets grappled, painted, and webbed, which are what the Hyenas were designed to do with their bonus target painters and long webs, it's going to be difficult to apply damage, especially to these Claymores, which are battle cruisers, so they're going to have a smaller SIG, a wonderful active tank, so it's going to be difficult to see if Volta can claw their way back.
Well, it's that same problem you have with the difference between the Fleet Typhoon and the normal Foon. The Foon does get an application bonus, but when you start going up to the Fleet, it doesn't have that same bonus, so it needed to have those Hyenas there to apply appreciable damage.
Yeah, Mystical Might right now, just taking the damage primary, he's just covered by both of the Claymores and the Navy Scorpion. He's going to go down in short order, and I think they're going to focus then on the other Fleet Typhoon. Again, the Prophecy on Volta's side is just there to provide links. Pandemic Legion just showing mastery, doing very well in their target calling, knowing exactly how Volta's team works, knowing exactly what pieces to pick apart first. They didn't go directly for the Augurer. Instead, they went for the Hyenas, which allowed this 3 battleship core, which with cruise missiles has a lot of potential damage, but immediately by icing those Hyenas, their ability to apply that damage became extremely limited. Tinking and the Scimitar stayed alive long enough to give his Claymores and the Navy Scorpion the head start they needed when taking down the battleships, and right now, this looks like curtains for Volta.
Yeah, I mean, as we were saying yesterday, this is the part where you know you're going to die. It's only a matter of time, but you have to stay alive long enough to give your team a chance. And this is clearly a case where that Scimitar made them earn that kill in blood that they could not afford to replace.
So it looks like Annie Garden is again trying to play with the edge of the arena. We know how well that's worked for PL in the past, so we're going to watch very carefully. I don't think anything's going to happen here. Both these Claymores are being very, very passive in chasing down this Fleet Typhoon. No rush. You know, for those of you that are watching the tournament who may not know or who are new players, these Hyenas, these very small electronic attack ships with ranges to webs and target painters, really make this team that Volta had brought. And I'm just bringing it back again to say, not only on the Pandemic Legion side, but both of those Zippels too. These small ships are really the linchpin of the entire operation. Zippels getting behind, getting the tackle on the Augurer, getting tackle on Hyenas, and then of course Hyenas on the Volta side, grabbing the webs and the bonus target painters really allow the bigger ships like Claymores, Scorpions, and Typhoons to actually do their job. So small ship piloting, again, really, really good at display here, showing how it should be done. Pandemic Legion is just finishing up the last of the EHP that Volta has, and it looks like they're going to have a pretty clean win.
Yeah, I mean, you saw at the beginning how incredibly powerful that was. That first Svipol just died. But, you know, once they were able to get under their webs and then get close enough to get their own tackle back on those ships, those Hyenas were just lights out.
Yeah, Hyenas had a lot to worry about with the Jackdaws, that's for sure. Those light missile T3Ds, very, very deadly against smaller frigates and other destroyers, not to mention the fact that Zippel's running at you very quickly. Hyena pilots had a lot to think about early on.
All the T3 destroyers are very, very good at killing electronic warfare frigates. Jackdaws especially, just because they don't have to deal with tracking and the long range of the light missiles.
So a little bit just to clean up here. Vengeance, trying to make it, but just finished off.
All right, well, that's the end of that one. So we're going to hand it back to the analysis desk. Back to you.
Pandemic Legion takes it in 2 over WeForm Volta, who will go down into the elimination bracket there to to form Volta against whoever it is that they face in their next match.
They're going to be a terror down there.
It's going to be fun to watch. We're going to see what happens. Obviously, Pandemic Legion not worried at all about that Sleipnir ban, bringing in those claymores as you mentioned they might, going straight ahead. I guess WeForm Volta really upset they didn't bring a Drake, which has proven much more effective against Pandemic Legion's fleet. Fozzie, what do you have to say?
What PL was trying to do there is get the win without giving away any new setups. They knew that they had a bit of a buffer. They could lose this match and still have the third one in the series, and even if they lost that, they're still in the tournament. So they decided to go with the safest option, which is not give away anything new, just show a setup you've already brought. In fact, the one you just brought. Switch up the Sleipnirs for a Claymore, and it worked out for them. So they are now going on to the winners bracket final, and with that, they are guaranteed to get at least some Alliance tournament prize chips.
Mod?
Yeah, so PL is now guaranteed third place at the very worst. Well done by them. And yeah, Volta just didn't seem like they had any answers for what PL was bringing to the field. I'm not sure if it's stress or nerves or what, but they just didn't seem like they had an answer for Pandemic Legion at all.
This team that PL brought here is obviously one that they'd practiced a ton. This is a team that they have the ability to sub in their Scorpion Navy issue flagship. They have the ability to sub in Natana if they feel like it, so they have a more powerful version of the same setup. And I'm guessing that they've practiced it more than almost anything else. This is the kind of default setup that they practice everything else against. They use it the baseline that they know inside and out. And it's really hard to beat a really well-practiced team at the setup that they know the best.
And it's interesting that they're running it at kind of as you indicate, a lower power level than they could. They can sauce that version up and give it a little bit more punch, which is going to bring in a lot of bans, going to bring in a lot of attention from the fleets that they fight later on in this tournament.
Yeah.
Of course, as you mentioned, they've secured themselves a very is it a definite third place if they
at least third place?
At least third place.
Yes.
They win and then they lose. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. There we go. Good job.
Yeah, and now Afterlife has a chance to do the same.
They could indeed. If Afterlife takes their next match, then today will end a little bit early. And we'll know that two teams are pretty far along.
And if that happens, then I know PL will probably be stressing out because the Afterlife team includes the core of the old Dark Side teams, which have shown that they've been able to knock PL's streaks before.
Well,
They're the ones that kicked them out of the tournament, kept them from winning 4 in a row.
Let's take a look at what PL did in that last match. There's the damage going across, 199,000 damage from Pandemic Legion, dropping down onto WeForm Volta. WeForm Volta unable to return even 50% of that back to the Legion. ISK lost not a tremendous amount, given what we've seen earlier in the tournament.
Yeah, these are fairly affordable teams.
Yeah, this is. These are not super spendy setups that we're looking at. We're not seeing a massive investment. It's just a significant investment.
Yeah, these are two bread and butter teams. I think this Volta team is also one that they would have practiced a ton. It's one that has a lot of similarities to what was popular last year as well. So they again know it inside and out. But in this case, that Navy Scorpion team with the dual command ship is a really strong core.
And you've got to wonder how Volta is going to take their next match, or do they go into series play?
No, they're going to have another just normal match against one of the teams that wins from the next losers bracket set. Yeah.
There we go. Moving on, we'll start looking at the bans for that second Afterlife Tuskers fight. Those bans have come in, and we have them up on
Paladin bans
now. The Paladin not making an appearance. Afterlife has targeted the Svapel and the Hyena. Again, this ban set almost exactly the same, except for that one ship change. In the previous match, they banned the Kitsune and the Hyena. This one, the Svapel and the Hyena. Tuskers, the exact same armor logi bans, Guardian Oneros.
The fact that Afterlife didn't ban the Kitsune is actually pretty instructive, because that may suggest they're not bringing the Paladins. Paladins, quite weak to ECM. So one of the things you may want to knock out is an ECM ship. So if it's also possible this is just misdirection, but if I see them not banning the Kitsune when they banned it last time, my first thought is maybe they're not going to bring the Paladins.
Well, we do see people being punished for bringing the same setup time and again. So it is entirely possible that we see something new coming from that fleet. Moderator, what do you think? Does Tuskers do Afterlife? Do they shift things up, or do they stick with what they know?
I think you bring some of your very best setups, even though you want to bring them towards the very end of the tournament. You have to bring them eventually, right? Or you're just going to get knocked out of the tournament. So you have in the upper bracket Afterlife that you're facing in this best of 3. In the lower bracket, you've got Exodus, you've got NC Dot, you've got... It's hard for me to keep track of all the good teams, Exodus as well. There's so many good teams in the lower bracket, you have to bring out your best at some point. So I say bring it now, get yourself into the winner's final. Don't have to worry about fighting through the lower bracket, and just to bring it home.
Yeah, I agree on Tuskers. I think they're going to have to bring something really strong here. They don't want to go down to the losers bracket.
Well, I mean, no one wants to go down to the elimination bracket, of course, but PFR, Exodus, NC Dot, Pasty,
plus then Volta, if you beat all of them.
That's I guess when you put it that way, yeah, I guess it's a little fearsome. Whatever.
And then once you've beaten all of that, then the loser of PL and either Afterlife or Tuskers.
It's a tough road to hoe, and it's a serious slog for anyone that goes down into the elimination bracket. All of these teams holding on as much as they can. Weaveworm Volta unable, but we'll see whether or not Tuskers can last out one fight against Afterlife, and then one more as we move into this next match. That's 118B, 118B of Alliance Tournament 14. Now, let me get a quick prediction. Fozzie, what happens in this match?
Back against the wall, I'm going to go with Tuskers. I think they're going to do their very best here.
Tuskers either bring a Fiend, some shield comp, or they bring their Flag Balgorn, and they win it because they go all in. Flag backs against the wall, Tuskers.
Possibly bringing the Balgorn, the flag sheep, as it were. We'll see what happens. The pilots are being moved into position now by the tournament team. We've got a little bit of time for an announcement. A reminder that in addition to the large player meetups, Evesterdam, sorry, I've got notes here. Yeah, Evesterdam, Eve Down Under, and Eve Vegas, which are coming up in 1 week, approximately on October 16th in Toronto at the Good Game Bar on Yonge Street in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. There will be a player meetup and a finals viewing party, as it were. They'll be doing
the Toronto crowd is really amazing. I've been to some of their meetups, and it was a really great time.
They are certainly a nice city with a horrible baseball team. They will be doing a draw to benefit a local children's hospital. So if you have a chance and you're in the Toronto area on October 16th, do pop by to the Good Game Bar, and I think goodgamebar.ca. CA is your people's standard nomenclature for websites. We will go to the boys in the booth, Chesser and Garayan Wassenaar, now for the second match of the Afterlife Tuskers Best of 3 series, match 118B of Alliance Tournament 14.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Alliance Tournament. I'm Chesser, joined by Gorion, and welcome to the second match of Afterlife versus Tuskers.
Yeah, this is make a break.
This is. I love what Afterlife has done. No surprise, or maybe, double Paladin, Balgorn, Augurer, Magus, Pontifex, double Blackbird, double Manicore, and Gorion. What have Tuskers brought?
Tuskers brought a Claymore, Scimitar, 2 Cerberuses, 2 Orthai, 2 Jackdaws, Kitsune Flycatcher.
So Tuskers here going with basically a Claymore that's full lengths. It does not have any weapons at all. They're going for a complete kite comp, and I like the Scimitar here better than I do with the Atana earlier. It's going to have a way better resist profile against the Paladins, has a smaller SIG, and is going to be faster. The question is Tuskers with their RLML going to be able to pick apart Afterlife? If Tuskers, they're going right for the Augurer right away, target painter on, very smart call right now. If they can headshot the Augurer early on, it's going to make their ability to kill these Blackbirds and Manicores much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see already half damage on the Augurer right now, dipping really low, and looks like they're going straight for that headshot.
Oh wow, the Alpha comes through right there.
Headshot.
Light missiles are deadly. Now what Tuskers are going to aim to do with their light missile setup, they're going to look to completely strip apart Afterlife. Very smart target calling. Look at this. Tuskers immediately taking out links of Afterlife, just absolutely neutering the Paladins and the Balgorn. So while those 3 ship cores may be able to withstand this type of burst DPS, the entire backline of Afterlife certainly will not be able to.
The support wing basically at this point is completely forfeit. The floodwaters are rising, and they're stuck on the last piece of high land, and the water's only rising.
So Tuskers right now are just using a scalpel, surgically picking apart Afterlife. While Paladins and Balgorns are powerful, they are also very slow. As you can see, the entire Tuskers team running, I would assume, with full skirmish and possible even some shield link in there from the Claymore, which has nothing but, I assume, straight links on it. Look at how fast they're going, and look at what's going on Afterlife side. They're priming an Orthrus, which is an absolutely great call. It's actually got a web on it from the Balgorn. Needs to be careful if that's a flag bow. Grappler on
Electronics
two.
is getting real low. Oh, he might be in trouble.
Oh boy,
he's grappled and
he definitely
webbed.
could go
He's
down.
gone.
That's a great first target, because the Orthrus is going to have little to no EM resist, minus a link maybe. And if that goes down, man, he is just barely clawing on here. His XLASB is probably running flat out, but once that is out, I do not see him living much longer.
You can see he's trying his damnedest. I mean, he's going about 57 meters a second,
broken.
which is not that far, and his speed will probably increase with the grapple broken. But you know, he's burning it out probably as hard as he possibly can.
It's really difficult to do that though when you are under Balgorn newts and Balgorn webs with the NOS. The Orthrus, only being a cruiser, generally does not roll with a cap booster, so if it even gets touched by a newt from a Balgorn, it's going to stop its MWD, and it's going to be slow boating and slowly killed. So the Tuskers now completely eviscerating the back line of Afterlife. They're now starting to work on a Paladin and leaving that Balgorn alone, which is a good idea. That Balgorn is a flag Balgorn with Tobias webs, which means that with links, it has the ability to web out to 67 kilometers. Links are dead now, but still, very long web range, very dangerous for this kiting team. The question is can Tuskers avoid unnecessary losses and break these Paladins before they lose too much?
Well, I mean, the Orthrus, that Electronicus is still holding on for dear life while this Paladin is dropping out of armor and into structure.
I am blown away that this Paladin is dropping this quickly.
Yeah,
I am blown away. There we go. There's the armor app coming in very late. I am curious to see if they're just straight breaking him with their burst DPS. Oh my God. Oh, barely holding on here. If this Paladin goes down, this is a terrible. Oh, this is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Afterlife basically saw what PL did with the double Paladin comp, figured that they'd try the same thing. Doesn't look like they pulled off the same kind of results here.
Light missiles not only have amazing application, they have damage selection and extreme range, which means that the entire Tuskers company, when they get back off of reload, can apply just astounding DPS, as you saw originally with the Augur just being sniped down with just a target painter on it.
Yeah, it's like a bucket of bricks being poured on your head. It just cudgels you to death. It does take a while to put the bricks back in, but doesn't matter when you've been concussed.
Afterlife's killed Scimitar of Tuskers, but you know what? At the speed at which I can see that they can take down a Paladin, I think it's going to be too little too late. All of their DPS is still there. Nothing's webbed down. Nothing is newted. So as long as Latronicus in his Orthrus can keep going, I think they've got a good chance of taking this. Kitsune down for Tuskers, which, again, Paladins are very weak to ECM, but right now, they're in a commanding position, and if they break the second Paladin, it's all over.
Yeah, I mean, the Kitsune going down is going to make things slightly harder, but it's not going to change the outcome at this point. I mean, all they have to do is just keep range. And even with the Tobias webs on that Balgorn being piloted by Faffy Waffy, it doesn't matter. I mean, they just have the ability to have range control as long as they're smart and pilot well and stay out away from this Balgorn.
Latronicus finally going down. Wonderful piloting by him and Skylar in the Scimitar doing everything they can to keep it together. This Scimitar stayed up so much longer than the Atana, not only because its resist profile is a lot better to EM and thermal damage, which is what Paladins are locked into, but it also has a smaller signature than an Atana and is much faster with an Afterburner.
Paladin down.
So with both Paladins down here, this is a flag Balgorn, and correctly, the Afterlife do not have a single gun on the Balgorn, so it has basically 0 DPS. It cannot kill anything, and every single ship here, being all missile ships, they don't need energy to shoot their weapon system. So at this point, in 4 minutes and 50 seconds, can the Afterlife's flag Balgorn tank and withhold against this burst type of DPS that Tuskers has, or are Afterlife not only going to lose the match, but throw their flagship away as well?
Well, I think the flagship is probably lights out. I mean, almost half the match is still remaining, and missiles don't care how little cap you have, which is part of the reason why I originally chose Caldari when I started in 2004. You can have a lot of things happen to you, but you can always still shoot your guns. And it's as you can see right here, it's dipping into armor. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing is probably going to be tanked to hell and back, but you know, with 4 minutes and 18 seconds still remaining, that's a lot of DPS that's still on the field with this Tuskers team, and I think they have plenty of time to do it.
So Faffy Waffy doing something very interesting here. He's MWDing all the way over to a tournament beacon. Now, I don't think he's going to use it to try and escape around the arena, just because the speed and projected DPS that the Tuskers team has. My bet is if he feels his tank is breaking, he will jump the Balgorn out of the arena, preventing Tuskers from actually grabbing any of that delicious purple loot, which is a really nice play that Afterlife is doing here. Question is are Afterlife and Faffy Waffy going to be able to hold on here? This is basically just a count against the clock. This fight is going to go to match 3. It's been intense between Afterlife and Tuskers. The question is can this can this Balgorn hold? I don't know what the fitting is for the low slots, but if he has a reactive armor hardener, Tuskers are going to need to start thinking about what type of damage they're shooting into the Balgorn. They need to switch it up. Some people need to start shooting thermals. Some people need to start shooting explosive, and not just stick to one damage type, because it's going to make it much worse. But you know what? It looks like they're slowly grinding him down here, and with 3 minutes, I'm very concerned about Afterlife's chances here.
Well, you know, he's still dipping into half. We still have, like I said, we started at 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Most of the match is still remaining, and we still have 3 good, solid minutes here for them to just wail on this flagship to try and open up the pinata of purple. And as we can see here, he has gotten to the micro jump unit. Let's see what he's thinking of doing about it. Looks like he's heading to the opposite side of the arena. It looks like he's not trying to do an Edge of Glory, so we'll see what happens with that. He's
just starting MJD now. Oh, it looks like he's actually jumping. Looks like he wants to be pointed all the way straight up towards another MJD possibly. He's not going to try and jump out of the arena with this one. MJD going off now. He's in the middle of 2. Did he break enough DPS in time? Now we're at 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Faffy Waffy doing everything he can to try and make this as painful as possible for Tuskers to try and grab this Balgorn. 35% armor, still taking damage, so it looks like he did not jump as far away as he had hoped. It's going to be interesting to see if he can pull it back. 38%, so he's just trying to claw back a little bit with that extra time, but I don't think it's going to be enough. This Balgorn, I think, is going to be going down.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he tried to see if he could at least get away from the large chunk of their DPS to try and avoid losing this expensive ship. But
he's heating it his MWD right over to the tournament micro jump, and if he can get there in time, I don't know, will he be able to MJD either out of the arena or not? Entering structure now. This is going to be a nail biter close to see if he can stop any of Tusker's crew from getting any of this purple.
Well, you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, he's just about to enter range for it. He's almost there, but he's already at less than 1/4 of structure. His armor barely coming back. I think he's going to die before it even activates.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, now it goes on, but he gets a huge signature bloom from this armor going. Can he take it before he dies? This is going to be huge. Is Tuskers going to be able to get some loot out of this?
Yep.
Oh, it goes down. The wreck is still there. Oh, wow. The MJD almost at the exact same time. The wreck is there. Wow.
And that's it. So it's me, Gorion, and Chester, and looking at you, camera, back to the analysis desk.
Thank you, Gorion. Thank you, Chester. That match, incredible. Tuskers coming back, giving themselves a little bit of room to breathe as they force this into the 3rd of a best of 3. Really, really intense play. Yeah. Kind of a bit there at the end. I don't know if anyone else was listening and hearing the pilot. Stay on target. Stay on target. Moderator, what did we see?
Okay, so what happened there is that the Afterlife brought the same setup. Tuskers did some bans and did some things that indicated that they maybe thought that they wouldn't be facing that. So they brought more or less a similar comp. They brought kind of the long-range Caldari missile ships. But what did they do? They brought a Kitsune. And I would be willing to bet more than anything else that that Kitsune had at least 3 Amar jammers, one for each of those ships. And with the Paladins not having very good sensor strength due to them being the Marauder, they were probably jammed out for most, if not all, of the fight. Tuskers could kite away, they killed the Augur, and then they just killed the support and snowballed from there.
Yeah, I mean, bringing a jamming ship to counter an exact setup you think your opponent's going to bring is something we see a lot in the final stages of the Alliance tournament. Teams will gamble a bit on these kind of things, and in this case, I think they gambled correctly.
The gamble paid off, really being able to shut down damage coming out, and then at their leisure pick apart that team. What we saw after they brought down the Augur, it was really just like systematic 1, 2, 3, 4, straight down through the support wing, and then moved up to those battleships at their leisure to just kind of, we'll take this one, and we'll take this one, and then let this battle bounce around a few micro jump units for a while. Highlights, anything that really stood out to you, Fozzie, as great piloting or just good target calling?
I mean, the kind of brutal efficiency that these rapid light ships were able to take down the Augur, pick off the small ships. It was just a setup that, honestly, both Moderator and I were a little bit worried about the Tuskers setup when we saw it, thinking that they were in trouble. But the combination of the Kitsune, probably with just the right jams, and the ability to take down this Augur. We talked in the last break about how the Tuskers would have had a tough time killing that Augur with their previous setup, with cruise missiles, without the ability to get right on top of the target. These ships are faster, and rapid lights apply really well to Tech 1 cruisers, and there's no difficulty taking down an Augur with this setup.
Yeah, a little fearsome at first, thinking that they didn't expect to see those Paladins again, but there they were. I think it was Gorion who mentioned that he had seen it before. It was definitely the Afterlife who brought it. That's them bringing it 2 times in a row, and Tuskers, you know, not expecting the punch the first time, but seeing it telegraphed for the second.
And so Afterlife came into this probably with the same thought process that PL did in their second match. We're ahead by 1 in the series. If we can avoid giving away any extra intelligence about what setups we have, that would be great. Anything you give away today means your opponents have a full week to practice against it. So if you can avoid doing that and save all your good stuff for the last weekend, where at most they have 1 day to prepare for it, it's a huge win. But now they need to bring something new out, because they know if they bring the Paladins again, they're going to lose. That's almost guaranteed. Tuskers have their number for this setup. They need to bring something else, and it's probably going to be one of their best setups.
Now, we are going to see additional matches both in the elimination bracket and in the undefeated bracket next week, starting on Saturday at 1500 Eve time, the same schedule more or less as this weekend. That, of course, commencing as per usual with the elimination bracket matches, where we'll see Phoebe, Freeport Republic, Exodus, NC Dot, and Pasty Syndicate, as well as we form Volta, engaging in elimination combat. Right now, we've got to look at the stats for the match we just saw. As we give those pilots a little bit of time to breathe, we can see how Tuskers took Afterlife's breath away. 201,000 damage coming out of Tuskers. Just dropping through, starting with that Augur, moving through the support wing, and then going up after those battleships and that flagship. Do we confirm that is the flagship for Afterlife? Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's a big loss.
A lot of money gone. 32 billion?
Yeah.
32
Very
billion
expensive
flagship.
ship. But most importantly for Afterlife, it means they can't bring this flagship again. They can't bring it next match today. They can't bring it next weekend. This is a real big loss for them. It's interesting, actually, to note, Tuskers, in all of their winning, actually made 1 really serious mistake. Their Scimitar flew out of the arena.
Oh, was that a boundary violation?
That was a boundary violation. See the 0 damage he took.
Why?
I was suspicious about it when he went from full to 0 that quickly.
Wow.
But yeah, so that Scimitar just accidentally wandered himself out of the arena. Thankfully, his team was already ahead by so much at that point that didn't matter. But I think he has an honorary membership to Habit waiting for him.
It's possible. He also has a resume up somewhere. You're looking for an experienced Logi pilot. No, I'm sure he's not fired or anything. He's done well. He did pretty well keeping that fleet together up until he PL'd.
Maybe at that point he was just winning by so much he decided to walk away from the computer, go get a drink. Make himself a sandwich.
Relax. Called up Elise Randolph, and he was like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? No, I don't know why I'm calling you. Who could say? Who could say?" So we've got one more match from these two teams coming. Pandemic Legion, of course, already sorted out their series of 3. That gives us a little bit more time to talk about what we expect to see, a little bit more time to reflect on what we've seen so far, and quite a chunk of time to talk about the prizes that are going to be available to these teams. Pandemic Legion having already secured themselves a 3rd place berth for the results, or for the winners podium. Here at Alliance Tournament 14. They will, of course, receive at least 7 cruisers and 7 frigates. The cruiser, the Rabisu, and the frigate, the Cadiz.
Cadiz.
Is that yours, or is that?
I think that's correct. Yeah, it's
the AE combo. Yeah, it's Cadiz.
Yeah.
The Cadiz and the Rabisu. Those ships, tremendously powerful. Blood Raiders style.
Vampiric demons from ancient Sumerian mythology is the origin of the names. The Rabisu, I think, would sit outside of people's doors and then kill them when they walked outside.
That's a lot like.
Which seemed very appropriate for a Cloaking Blood Raider ship.
Yeah, it seems very on theme for the pirate faction. Mod, have you ever flown any Blood Raider ships in game?
Yeah, I have. Not often, but the Belgorn is definitely a powerful anti-logistics platform in terms of what it can do. I've flown. Not so much the Yashimo or the Cruor, they're not really what I do in my playstyle, but I think I've flown a Belgorn on a couple occasions.
What do you think about these prize ships, the KDs and the Rabis?
So, what the logistics cruiser does, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, does... the Rabisu, okay.
It's not too hard.
Okay, I got it. Is that it's going to do effectively what the Atana does going into the next Alliance tournament, where if you have one of these, well, even if you ban Guardiano Neros, you can still bring a Tech 2 Logi. It'll just cost you probably about 140, 150 billion ISK to do so, which most of the upper end teams will be willing to do if they can actually get their hands on one. So,
and the way these teams kind of mutate and change over time, we can expect to see some of these prize ships, after being distributed to pilots, moving ownership from one alliance to another. It's really anybody's call where they ultimately end up. It may be that they concentrate in the hands of a wealthy few, but yeah, they definitely could be being the armor logi equivalent of the Atana in next year's Alliance Tournament 15. Alliance Tournament 15 ATXV. It's just not as good.
Yeah, these Alliance Tournament ships, it's common to see them sit in the hands of pilots that were on teams that won them and just got them that way. Rich collectors and teams who expect to enter future Alliance Tournaments will often buy them and stockpile them to use for their own teams, their own setups. That's partly why the price drives so high. But they're really great ships. If you have the guts to do it, they're really, really powerful to fly in just normal combat. They're amazing for the Alliance Tournament. They're amazing mementos for people as well. For those people that actually got them by winning a tournament match instead of buying them, that's I've got a couple that I was involved in teams that won, and those I would never fly, not because I couldn't afford the cost, but just because those have a sentimental value to me beyond any kind of ISK.
Yeah, I managed to get a Chromois, and I admittedly kind of got it as a gift. I never actually flew the thing. Someone conveniently bought it for me for about 100-something billion, and then died with it like 24 hours later. So,
were they ratting? Were they
no,
just AFK mining in it?
No, they died to Missy, Lorelei, and Losec. So.
That's the way the penny drops, I suppose. You live by spending a bunch of money and then you die by losing it.
One of my favorite little tidbits about these prize ships for this year, they're the first ships in the game to have a special bay that can only hold corpses. So you've got a dedicated corpse bay for collecting your enemies.
This is gorgeous. The type of things that we come up with here at CCP and EVE Development.
There's actually a big schism in EVE Development between the people who are corpse collectors themselves and the people that find it super creepy.
It's
popsicles.
Yeah, they're really great. I think Larrikin always gets weirded out whenever I talk about my corpse collection, but we've got some people that really enjoy it.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Getting away from this corpse collecting.
I think we're all a little uncomfortable now. We've made it weird, and that's not unusual for this particular desk. So, moving forward with the match, Afterlife versus Tuskers. Number 3 of 3. It really comes down to what they've seen before, what they're able to bring, and what they expect to see from their opponents. We've seen Tuskers able to pick apart what Afterlife has already chosen to bring. That Paladin setup does Afterlife risk it by bringing the Paladins a third time?
If I was them, then no. I don't think they can do that. It's just asking for destruction at this point.
Then the question is, what does Afterlife have in their stable that they can bring instead? Moderator?
Well, okay, so a Balgorn ban for them would be really bad because Tusker still has theirs, and they could bring that anyway. They would just do it to circumvent the ban. So if you're in Afterlife shoes, you have to bring out some sort of an AT ship setup. I think you need to bring your own Fiend or your own Atana. I think that there's almost no way that Tuskers doesn't bring theirs. I was thinking for the previous match, yeah, they have to bring a Fiend or a their flagship, but instead, they're like, nah, we're just gonna psych you out and we're gonna bring a triple jam Kitsune and deal with it that way. I think Tuskers takes it in the last match, but again, they go all in for it. They really need to secure this victory. They want to get the guaranteed top 3, that means 7 Alliance tournament ships,
it's a
or
huge
7 of
victory
each, actually.
Here. Yeah, if you can win this, you are guaranteeing yourself glory and riches, and it's a big deal.
You win yourself about 2 trillion roughly if you win this match. So.
And it's also hard to overstate, these teams don't have a lot of time to make this decision. They go right into the bans after the match. They have to come up with what setup they want to use. They have to get everyone into the setup, into the right implants, ready to go, and then back onto the field. This is high pressure.
We say they go right into the bans. They've gone right into the bans.
Yeah.
You may want to revise your opinion after you hear them. I don't know. You might want to stick with it. Afterlife has banned out the Blackbird and the Kitsune.
Oh, that might mean Paladin again. Or it's a fake out. They're trying to convince them that they bring Paladin.
We don't know. We know that Tuskers doesn't want to see the Balgorn on the other side, and they also don't want to see the Curse. Which we have seen earlier in the tournament thus far, but I don't think, did we see, I thought it was Exodus that brought, was it?
Vidra brought curses and did a very good job on
That's
that.
correct.
Not wanting to see the curse might suggest they're going for the 4 Navy battlecruiser sniper team, because that is a team that really doesn't want to see curses. Or could just mean that they want to bring their own flag Balgorn, because curses can really throw a wrench into your Balgorn by nuding it out. Yeah, it's hard to predict. The ECM bans from Afterlife, that is them signaling we are bringing the Paladin again. Whether that's a fake out or not, I don't know. But that is what that screams.
It looks that way, but
So it's hard to tell. I think it would be a mistake if they bring the Paladins again, even with these bans, especially after they made bans that are this obvious about it. I think it's quite possible they're faking it out. It's also quite possible that, again, so high pressure, so little time to decide that they just said, screw it, ban the ECM, bring the Paladins again, we practice it, we know it, we have it ready to go. I think it would be a mistake, though.
Yeah, curses would be a rather good pick if you're trying to deal with any number of a few things. You want to do it to go against the Navy Battlecruiser Corps. You're doing it because you want to deal with possible the missile guidance disruptors that could go on to any sort of a kiting missile comp. The curses is kind of a general all-purpose ban.
it's interesting.
Not sure what to think of the Balgorn ban though.
I think the Balgorn is probably them thinking what you were talking about. A, it means that they can't bring the exact Paladin setup no matter what, because that's been banned and the Balgorn was a big part of that Paladin setup.
They're going to have to modify it if they do.
And B, it's a ban where it doesn't actually give much information to Afterlife, because Afterlife still has to prepare to face a Balgorn.
Yeah, and their own Balgorn, and if they bring their own Balgorn, those newts are going to shut down any Paladin setup so hard.
So it's almost as if Afterlife has to bring something new. Whether or not they comply with what they must do, or whether they attempt to ride the currents of confusion.
It's also possible that I'm completely wrong about that, and that they're going to win with the Paladins. But if I was them, I would avoid the Paladins in this case.
Let's see what happens when we go to the match. Before we do, a quick reminder about player events coming up. I apologize if it seems like I'm stressing these things, but I really want people to go to EVE Down Under, because otherwise I'm sitting at a table alone in a country filled with dangerous animals and
be surrounded
also
by great
wildlife.
people.
Eve Down Under happening the 25th, 26th, and 27th of November. Myself, CCP Carker, and CCP Falcon will all be in attendance, ready to hang out with our Southern Hemisphere brethren and sistren. Is that a thing? That's not a thing.
No.
On the 12th and 13th of November, Amsterdam will be taking place. There will be CCP representation at that event. I do not have which devs, do not have access to information about which devs will be attending, but I can promise you at least one of us will go there. Everyone here kind of loves Amsterdam. It's a nice little event that occurs. I say little, and I mean the largest Eve player event outside of FanFest in Europe. Really incredible. And of course, on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of October, Eve Vegas will be occurring in Las Vegas, Nevada. A huge roster of attending CCP developers, Eve developers, Valkyrie developers, people from across the board, people that you want to talk to, people that you lobbied to have attend Avalon. Lots of folks are going to be there. They're ready to chat. They're ready to interface with the players and engage their information warfare links.
I got a little peek at some of the preparations for the party that have been going on here, all the planning of what's going to be going on there, and it is going to be amazing. We've got some great surprises for that party. I'm looking forward to it so much.
It should be nice. Of course, if you can't make it, the 07 show will be streaming from Vegas all 3 days live here on Eve TV on Twitch, so you can tune in. But if you've got the weekend free, a fresh batch of affordable hotel rooms are now available at the hotel adjacent to the venue at which Eve Vegas will be taking place. So you can go on to the website right now, vegas.eveonline.com, and use the room code to get that deal. I recommend that if you are available, you make it there. Do not buy a motorcycle. Instead, go to Clark County, go to Eve Vegas, have a great time. Mod, any chance you're going to make it?
Not sure yet.
Not that's and then he glances at me sideways.
I'm like,
with a smirk. With a smirk.
Are you going to be there?
This is awful because I'm going to say no, and he's going to go, I'm really going to try. No, I'm not going to be there.
Okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to be there either.
Yeah, you didn't even do it. It was perfect. It was perfect setup. Perfect.
No.
Cans, and then a pitch, and then you.
No, I'm just going to drink the water.
Freedom. He's drinking the water. We did it. We did it, everyone. So those player meetups coming up. Also, player meetups in Birmingham, England, for the finals of the Alliance Tournament 14, #ATXIV, and also a player meetup happening in Toronto, as we mentioned earlier, along with a raffle or giveaway there with proceeds to benefit a local children's hospital. We did mention earlier on the stream a charity event being run by former Alliance Tournament commentator
Back in Alien.
Gorion will be back with us next weekend. He'll probably get a chance to offer us a few more details about that. If not, you can. I think Bacchanalia is fishing or something, but he's probably available online through Twitter or through Twitter or Reddit or one of his.
He'll be posting about it on the forums as well.
He'll be posting about it on the forums right now. And I'm sorry that I don't have more information to hand right now. But that's something to look into. And of course, also visit the websites for our friends at Broadcast for Reps and Best of Us, both of whom are just great player groups outside of the game who do a lot for people that need assistance. Time remaining until this match kicks off. T-minus 2 minutes.
All right, getting very close now.
The teams are supposedly being moved into position as we speak. I assume that means that they're all ready already.
I'm really excited about this match. I think we're going to see something amazing from Afterlife. Though I think they're going to probably be knocked on their back foot a bit. They have to react. They're the ones on the defensive now. So this is a really good position to be in if you're the Tuskers.
Yeah, Tuskers, they want to take the momentum that they've gained from winning the next match, carry that into this match, win it, have everyone, feeling happy and ready to go into the next week and then to take the winner's final instead of having to feel kind of dejected about yourself having lost this and then having to slog through the lower bracket. Tuskers, take it home for me.
Wow, a pretty strong endorsement there. Wanting to see the Tuskers do well. This their third Alliance tournament appearance, I think.
I believe so. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really good team.
Yeah, great
a lot
team.
Of, really great performances from both teams thus far. Both of them very powerful. Very good execution on their comps. Great read of what they expect to see coming at them. Faze, do you have a dog in the race?
This is going to be close. I'm going to go with, I think Tuskers is probably going to win it.
I can't argue with the table. I'd love to see. I mentioned it yesterday. I do quite like the Tuskers. I think that they played a match on my very first appearance on the Alliance tournament. I was not the host. I was a guest, and a horrible guest. In fact, I don't know why they invited me back. I'm positive that Twitch chat agrees with that sense of doubt. I would like to see Tuskers do well. I'm eager to see whether or not Afterlife has some sort of psychological warfare going on, whether or not those Paladins and some Balgorn substitute makes an appearance. But
to find out.
We'll find out after the match begins. Are we prepared to go to the booth yet? I don't think Chesser is prepared for us to go to the booth just yet. No, not yet. No, we are not. We are holding steady. And in doing so, we are killing it.
Yeah, the real big thing here is going to be for both of these two teams, Tuskers and Afterlife. They really want to win, but they also really want to avoid giving away their very best setups. Even at this point, you'd almost actually prefer to go down to the losers bracket than give away your best stuff. A whole week for people to practice against it, a whole week for people to prepare for it is going to be really rough. So if you can manage to hold back until next Saturday, that is a huge win for any team. That's why PL, I think, would be very happy with what happened in their series. They were able to not give away anything new and hold back all their best stuff until no one will have time to react to it.
Am I allowed to disagree with this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can disagree with everything.
I think
you can never disagree with me.
No, I think you have to. I think you have to go not your very best setup, but I think like one of your top 2 or 3 you have to take into this. You need to avoid having to grind all the way through the losers bracket. I think you're going to eventually use up so many other setups, and that your pool is only so many deep. You only have so many comps, and I think you need to avoid having to play as few matches as possible. Tuskers is a team that historically has had trouble with that in the past. They've gotten to, say, the top 3, top 4 position. They've gone up against teams like Warlords, and they've just ran out of ideas, and that's cost them in the past. I think they want to avoid that now.
It's certainly true that they want to minimize the number of matches that they have. I can't imagine that either of these teams is going to be too restrained as they move forward, though. You've really got to punch.
Yes, you need to be bringing something really strong.
Some serious force.
It is a really important match.
Interestingly enough, and I'm going to throw a bone over to our friends at Crossing Zebras, who provide a lot of coverage of EVE Online play and really fantastic Alliance tournament lead-up coverage. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the teams that you've seen flying this weekend, and also the teams that you saw flying last weekend, you can do so. There's a series of background articles basically going through every team that flew in the Alliance tournament this year. Crossing Zebras also provided a few other articles discussing various rules changes and just overall coverage of the tournament. And our friends over there do wonderful work. We had some of them on the 07 show during FanFest this year, and it was a delight, really.
And some of them were involved in the EVE stream of the first weekend as well.
Most definitely. I don't know if I saw Needon on stream. Was he there?
Yeah, he was on stream for a bit. Yeah.
There you go.
Right a bit at the end, I think, as they were kind of winding down.
Yeah,
he was busy managing for the rest of the time.
He's wild. All of them, all of Crossing Zebras, great. Of course, all of our friends at EVE who did work on that initial stream, wonderful work, and we gave them special thanks yesterday. We'll give them another tip of the cap today. EVE and our volunteer groups, ISD. Interestingly enough, if you're interested in volunteering either as a bug hunter or a lore policeman or there's a number
welcoming new players.
New player welcome team. There's a number of roles available to those who want to volunteer in EVE Online to assist in whatever capacity they feel most suited to serve. So please check out the ISD website. I don't know if we have that available to throw up on the screen. Probably not. But
if you Google it, you'll find it.
If you Google Eve ISD, you'll find it. There are a number of departments. My favorite group of players is actually the bug hunters and all of the pilots who appear on Singularity, our test server. If ever you feel the urge to jump on, you can take a look at features that have not yet come to TQ. You can see things that are still being worked on by developers here in Reykjavik, Iceland, and you can take a look at some of the things that will be coming down the pipe. We tend to be pretty stable on Singularity these days. And the new launcher setup enables anyone who's installed EVE Online to rapidly switch servers, get over there. Things are cheap, and you can fly ships. Well, you can fly the ships that you can fly, but...
and if you participate in mass tests, you get free skill points. You can fly more ships. Right now, Sissy is running actually a really early preview build of our November expansion, including the amazing new explosions. So those are on Sissy right now. You should go check them out, all players.
Who doesn't like new explosions, right?
Yeah, they are gorgeous. I think that's one of them. We showed that off at FanFest, and since then it's been one of those things that keeps coming up. It's like, when are the explosions coming? When are the explosions coming? Players ask about it all the time.
The new Dominic's rework. The Dominic's rework was introduced at FanFest, and then it was a few years later that it finally came down. The explosions do look fantastic. So if you have a chance, the next time you're killing a little bit of time and you're not monitoring your citadels to see if they're being attacked in their vulnerable period, hop onto Singularity, take a look at some of the new features, take a look at the patch notes, and play around. Certainly, Singularity pilots are helpful pilots, and in some cases, they find issues that we wouldn't otherwise track down. And it's also great to get player feedback on features well before they hit the live server. If we had had a few more pilots on Singularity, we might have avoided the gong.
Yeah. Going to the mass test is always something that's good. It helps people find these bug hunts, and I always like to go in Singularity so I can test out the new modules and ships that are coming into the game and get a feel for how they'll handle and what I can do with them, and kind of get a bit of an edge up that way.
Yeah, we had a recent mass test for the new fleet boosting system, the AoE fleet boost. Did a lot of performance tweaks from that, made sure the client performance would work out okay, and it was extremely helpful.
And that's going to be interesting. And in next year's Alliance tournament, how are we gonna do it, Fozzie?
Players are going to have to learn to maneuver with these ships, and they already are, right? These are in Alliance tournament. All of these pilots are incredibly talented, very aware of their positioning, unless they're chasing down a Drake and focused on that. And they are going to be able to manage that positioning pretty well, I think.
Great. We're about 1 minute out from the beginning of the match. The final in this series of 3, Afterlife versus Tuskers. The tournament will recommence following this match. We'll have a little closeout, and I'll remind you again. But next weekend, Saturday, October 15th.
Sounds right.
Have I done the math? Twitch will correct me if I'm incorrect. Mercifully. Next week on Saturday, we will commence broadcast at 1500 Eve time of the final stages of this Alliance Tournament 14 ATXIV. Right now, though, we will move to the fields where the pilots have already been moved into position and are preparing to warp in. We'll go to Chester and Ryan Wassenaar in the booth for commentary on match 118C of Alliance Tournament 14.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ryan, and this is Chester. And we're here ready to watch the final match here between Tuskers and Afterlife. You know, the spirit's fleeting and the boar's cornered. Let's see what they got.
So, Afterlife, and I'm just legit shocked by this, double Paladin Fleet Typhoon, Onieros, Magus, Pontifex, double Manicore, double Nemesis, and Tuskers bringing what, Gorion?
Oh, the Tuskers are bringing a Bargus, double Fleet Foon, Oneros, Nosai, Purifier Hound, and double Curor. So we'll see how this plays out, and double Paladin again. I mean, that's a ballsy move. We'll see how it works.
I don't like that very much. It seems that Tuskers is actually going with a mixed bag of missile ships. RLML, actually, no, I take that back. Excuse me. RLML across the entire squad of their 3 battleship backbone. So the question is are they going to be able to apply enough damage straight off the go? It looks like they're trying to headshot the Logi of Afterlife. If they can kill it straight up before the first reload, this is going to be huge for Tuskers, but their Bargus is getting wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, the Bargus is being bent over backwards like a piece of scrap metal here. It's clawing back armor, but you know, it's not meant to be an armor ship, really. It's more meant to be a shield skirmish ship. So to see it kind of be in this situation, it's really, really, really scary. But it looks like it's paying off for them because the Aneros is dropping there on the Afterlife.
Rep drones are all over the Aneros.
Oh,
He's
there it
grabbed
goes.
Aneros is down, and you know what? Afterlife has not been able to capitalize and kill this Bargus. It is holding extremely low shield. I mean, excuse me, extremely low armor. Armor Bargus, of course, and I was really surprised. I didn't know if the Bargus would be able to stand against that, but it looks like the Paladins right now are going to be in a heap of trouble. Tusker is very quickly moving on to the support wing now, taking those Nemesis off the field. Wow,
Afterlife is switching to the Fleet Typhoon applied by Anuka. Try to see if they can switch off to catch the their Logi napping, but looks like he's got reps coming into it. So definitely a much more tough nut to crack than the Bargus in armor, that's for sure.
Most definitely. The issue is with Afterlife is they are not able to put really any pressure on the Oneros, and provided that he doesn't boundary himself this time, I think they're looking at a pretty good position here. This first Paladin looking very weak. It's going to go down shortly. I cannot believe Afterlife brought 3 Paladin setups in a row against Tuskers. I mean, you need to respect Tuskers a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, as moderator said yesterday, it's kind of disrespectful to think that, you know, fool me once, shame on you, but you're clearly getting to the point where you're just banging your head into a wall and expecting a different result.
Yeah, I really like Tuskers and their setup here. With a full RLML comp, armor comp, Barghest, and Typhoons, your first initial shots, that first big alpha that you have, another mana core down for Afterlife, that first big alpha that you have, you really want to make it count, because once you start reloading, once you start letting the match get on, the effectiveness of RLMLs, sometimes you kind of lose that punch off those huge 35-second reloads, but taking and headshotting the Logi immediately of Lightbender on Afterlife was
the
huge.
development, and Aneros on the Tusker side has gone down. We'll see if that makes a huge difference at this point. I mean, they might switch back to the Barghest, because it was holding up barely before, but with that Paladin by Head Kender down, that's a huge chunk of their DPS gone.
Yeah, you know, I think right now it's a really big mistake for Afterlife to start focusing on Typhoons, although that Fleet Typhoon is just melting again very quickly. I would be focusing more on the Purifier. That's a lot of damage coming in on the battleships, but if they drop this Fleet Typhoon this quickly, wow, this is actually surprising. Its armor just evaporated.
Yeah, it looks like the Oneros was really the linchpin on how that thing was staying alive, but yeah, Fleet Typhoon by, I can't see because there's a UI issue, but Anuka going down, and here we are.
It looks like they're focusing on a Barghest now. Yeah, damage primary is Barghest, which is very interesting. Now, I think that's going to drop pretty quickly here, because Barghests are not really meant to be armor tank ships, although we have seen them like flex tanked into armor setups recently. Exodus has run it before, and Tuskers as well. If this Paladin with its self-rep, which is looking actually okay, kills the Barghest, I don't think that Tuskers has the DPS to break this last Paladin.
Well, that may be the case, but
can it be
doesn't matter. I mean, the problem at this point is that Tuskers have a 25-point lead, so even if they do break that, I mean, it's still going to be...
True. Oh, Paladin down now. Yeah, that's not good. It may have been a better idea to kind of focus down these Purifiers and Hounds. I'm going to be curious at the end of the match when we look at damage, how much damage these bombers, which were completely left unmolested the entire time to just rain DPS down on these 3 battleship core, how much damage they're actually going to be doing here. I think maybe the Barghest was the wrong call in that situation.
Yeah, these Purifiers and Hounds have just been left completely on their own to just do as they will, and they've enacted their will on the other team. They are just raining torpedoes onto Faffy Waffy there. Basically, probably regretting a lot of things right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Afterlife looked really strong, but I think at this point, when the pressure really gets on, and I know that the desk, Fozzie and moderator were talking about it, when you have these high pressure situations where it's match after match after match against the same team, you need to have all these ships ready. You need to have game plans ready. You need to have depth. You need to be able to be ready to move in and out of different choices. If you can't match up to it, you're going to get taken out.
Yep, and as we see, not even a full halfway mark, barely to the halfway mark, and the match is over. So we'll hand it back to the analysis desk. Good luck to the Tuskers. They advance, and here we'll see you next time.
Tuskers able to bore their way through the afterlife, just destroying that fleet. Those paladins unable to make a third appearance work for them. Some of that going to be the changes to the fleet comp. Some of it just going to be Tuskers' tremendous piloting, excellent target calling, a really good show from their Logi. I'm impressed. I'm not tremendously surprised to see them do so well. Maybe to see them do it so quickly. Afterlife, that's shocking to me that you'd bring the third appearance of that comp in a row. Fozzie, tell me about that.
You don't have a ton of time between matches. I think this was a mistake on their part. Both bringing it again for the third time and also telegraphing that you're going to bring it with those bans. Those bans screamed Paladin, and so Tuskers knew that they had a decent chance of coming up against this. They knew what they were going to be facing, and they were prepared for it. They knew exactly what to do.
Yeah. Serious showing, Tuskers. Moderator, what did you think?
Yeah, to highlight the Tuskers, so what they did was they immediately tried to force a Logi trade, and they did that. They got tackle on the Oneros, which is what they absolutely needed to do with that heavy comp to win, and they did so. They got the newts on it, shut down some of the hardeners, shut down the prop mod, and then they got the webs and the paints on it to slow it down to allow the missiles to apply. Once they did that, they just chewed through the support, and from there on out, a handful of paladins, yeah, it can do a lot. It can be kind of scary, but they were ahead, and they just carried it the rest of the way home.
Yeah, the paladins obviously worked really well as a surprise setup. Not as great against a team that is prepared for them, that knows what they're facing, that has had like 20 minutes to think about how to beat it, and has shown that they can beat it before. So Afterlife is going to go down to the elimination bracket, and we're going to see Tuskers versus Pandemic Legion in the winners bracket finals. Tuskers, like PL, has now guaranteed themselves at least 7 of each prize ship.
7 cruisers, 7 frigates. The damage for the fight that we just saw coming up on your screen now, so you can see Tuskers dominant. Actually, damage dealt, dominant, recovering from damage dealt. Actually, they deal less than Afterlife does. They just do it more effectively.
Yeah, and they just were able to keep their ships alive. They were, whenever they were dealing damage, they were killing things, while Afterlife wasn't finishing them off. Yeah.
Can we talk about the armor bar guest, the arm guest?
Yeah, we've seen them a couple of times here.
So used to seeing that ship in a shield comp, though, to see it brought here and to see it plugged into that Typhoon setup. I mean, really interesting, I think, as a sub-in for the ships that they couldn't bring.
Not something you see a ton in normal combat in EVE, but here in the tournament, mid-slots matter so much. Mid-slots are extremely important because you can really optimize your EW. You have a bunch of pilots that have practiced together, that know their plan really well, and you can actually use all these, like the extra webs and grapplers, extra E-War, really effectively.
And one other piece of E-War you can really use effectively is that the Barghest has a bonus to scram strength, so, or range, how optimal, So you can use a Tech 2 scram, and that will hit out almost as far as like a faction scram on any other ship. So that's a nice bit of screen you can do to keep yourself just outside of scram range of someone else, just being like, keep away from a little kid.
Yeah, especially powerful against other battleships.
Genuinely effective in this match, which sees Afterlife go down into the elimination bracket as Tuskers moves forward to face Pandemic Legion in the next undefeated bracket. We have the schedule, of course, for next weekend to deliver. Before we break for today, PFR, Phoebe Freeport Republic, will go up against Exodus, and the winner of that match will face WeForm Volta in this just grueling elimination bracket. Following PFR Exodus, we'll see NC Dot versus Pasty Syndicate, and the winner of that match will move on to see the defeated Afterlife that we just saw trounced by Tuskers.
Everyone in the final 8 is really amazing.
Yeah.
You have to beat a lot of quality teams to survive here.
There's a lot of damage, a lot of ships to be lost, a lot of prizes to be won when we return next weekend for the finals of Alliance Tournament 14 #ATXIV here on EVE TV. Until then, I am CCP Antiquarian, joined by CCP Fozzie, moderator in the booth, Chesser, and Garayan Wasanar, and of course, not making an appearance this afternoon, but joining us again next weekend, the illustrious Zarvox Tural. Until then, good night.
Закончено освоение навыка.